3:17 p.m., Mayang Island, West Sea of Korea, broad daylight. At that exact moment, the order was already given, not debated, not delayed, not conditional. The execution of 12 United States Marines had been approved. From Pyongyang, Kim Jong-un watched a live satellite feed showing American forces on North Korean territory. The images confirmed what his intelligence feared most. A secret underground nuclear facility, hidden for years beneath Mayang Island, had been found, photographed, and exposed. There would be no negotiation, no diplomatic response, no second chance. The decision was immediate. Capture them alive, execute them at sunset, broadcast it to the world. 6:00 p.m., clear skies, perfect visibility, maximum propaganda impact. On Mayang Island, the Marines felt the shift before they heard the alarms. The mission was already complete, photos secured, soil samples collected, radiation confirmed. They were moving toward extraction when sirens erupted across the island. Vehicles started moving. Helicopters lifted into the open sky. Soldiers poured from concealed positions. Within minutes, more than 200 North Korean troops surrounded the island's interior. There was no darkness to hide in, no fog, no confusion, only sunlight, and nowhere to disappear. At 3:21 p.m., a North Korean commander spoke through loudspeakers, his English calm and precise. "American Marines, you are surrounded. You have no escape. Surrender now." He didn't mention execution. He didn't need to. Sunset was less than 3 hours away. The Marines didn't respond. They were already moving toward the northern cliffs, the only defensible ground on the island, because they understood something the North Koreans didn't, and because the order to execute them had just triggered something far bigger than a capture operation. What Kim Jong-un believed would be a public execution had already become a countdown to disaster, and it had only just begun. Kim Jong-un believed time was on his side. 12 Marines, isolated, surrounded, in broad daylight. He assumed they would panic, that they would freeze, that surrender would come once the perimeter closed. That assumption was his first mistake. Those 12 weren't regular infantry. They were force recon. Operators trained to operate alone, trained to hold ground when extraction fails, trained to survive when the enemy controls the clock. His second mistake was the island itself. Mayang Island wasn't open terrain. Its northern edge rose into jagged cliffs, sheer drops into open sea, narrow approaches, natural choke points, a defender's ground. The third mistake was distance. 40 nautical miles offshore, the USS America was already altering course, engines turning, decks preparing, a ship built for one purpose, putting Marines where they're needed. The fourth mistake was authorization. The moment those photos and samples were transmitted, this was no longer reconnaissance. It became strategic exposure. A red line crossed in full daylight. And the fifth mistake, the fatal one, was believing America would hesitate. At 3:26 p.m., the President of the United States watched the same satellite feed. 12 Marines moving under open sky. Enemy forces closing. A public execution scheduled for sunset. No committee, no delay. 2 words left the room. Get them. On Mayang Island, the Marines reached the cliffs. They didn't wait. They didn't argue. They dug in. Fields of fire overlapped. Defensive positions locked. Every approach covered. They knew the plan. Hold until sunset if they had to. Hold until someone came. And someone was already on the way. At 3:34 p.m., North Korean commanders tightened the perimeter. Orders changed. Capture them alive. Do not kill them. That hesitation would cost time, and time was the only thing the Marines needed. The countdown to sunset had begun, but the countdown to disaster had already started, and this time it wasn't for the men on the cliffs. By 3:42 p.m., the first assault began. North Korean infantry moved in daylight, confident in their numbers. Machine guns opened fire. RPGs cut across the sky. There was no confusion about what was happening. Everyone could see everything. The Marines returned fire with discipline. Short bursts, controlled movement, no wasted ammunition. They weren't trying to win. They were trying to last. North Korean commanders pushed forward, then pulled back. They wanted the Marines alive. Orders from Pyongyang were clear. Capture them. Do not kill them. That restriction changed everything. Every hesitation gave the Marines seconds. Every pause created space. At 3:58 p.m., tear gas and smoke grenades rolled toward the cliffs. Visibility dropped. Breathing burned. Gas masks came on without panic. Positions held. The Marines shifted, adjusted, adapted. At 4:07 p.m., another message came over loudspeaker. American Marines, sunset is approaching. Surrender now. Captain Eric Daniels answered on open frequency, calm and measured. We are United States Marines. We don't surrender. We don't retreat. The response echoed across the island. By then, North Korean casualties were already visible. Bodies in the open. Wounded pulled back under fire. At 4:12 p.m., a Marine went down, wounded, not killed. He was dragged back into cover without breaking the line. That moment changed the tone. The Marines were no longer just holding. They were dictating the fight. At 4:18 p.m., a priority transmission reached the fleet. Heavy contact, broad daylight, ammunition holding, but not forever. The response came immediately. Rescue force launched. ETA 90 minutes. 90 minutes against 200 soldiers. The Marines did the math. They tightened the perimeter, checked weapons, watched the clock. Sunset was still coming, but now something else was moving faster, and the sky above Myang Island was about to change. At 4:31 p.m., the sound changed. High above Myang Island, engines cut through the air, fast, sharp, unmistakable. 4 F-35B fighters crossed into North Korean airspace in broad daylight. No warning shots, no radio calls, no hesitation. Precision strikes followed within seconds. Command vehicles disappeared in fire. Artillery positions collapsed. The perimeter began to break. North Korean units scattered, unsure where to look first. At 4:36 p.m., the next wave arrived. AH-1Z Viper attack helicopters swept in low over the water, sunlight reflecting off their canopies. Hellfire missiles launched in clean arcs. Rockets tore through troop concentrations along the shoreline. What had been an organized encirclement became chaos. At 4:42 p.m., 2 Navy SEAL teams hit the southern beach at speed, fast, aggressive, silent until it mattered. They secured landing zones and cut off escape routes. Then came the sound everyone on the island heard. Ospreys. 16 MV-22s appeared over the horizon, rotors tilting forward, moving too fast to track. They didn't land near the cliffs. They landed behind the North Korean lines. 320 Marines hit the ground in seconds, machine guns set, mortars deployed, fire teams moving. The trapped Marines weren't surrounded anymore. They were the center of a collapsing enemy formation. At 4:51 p.m., naval guns offshore opened fire. 5-inch rounds screamed overhead, striking roads, bridges, and reinforcement routes. The island shook. North Korean commanders tried to re-establish control, but radios filled with panic. Requests for support, reports of massive losses, orders contradicting each other. Then silence. At 5:02 p.m., Captain Daniels received the transmission. You are no longer surrounded. Friendly forces on your island. Prepare to move. The Marines rose from their positions. Weapons reloaded, wounds checked, eyes forward. They weren't evacuating. They were advancing. And the objective wasn't just survival anymore. At 5:15 p.m., the situation changed permanently. The 12-force Recon Marines didn't withdraw. They didn't run toward safety. They turned back into the fight. Reinforced now, surrounded by hundreds of friendly forces, covered from the air, the sea, and the ground. The mission was no longer about survival. It was about ending what had been discovered. At 5:18 p.m., assault elements moved toward the mountain's central face. Steel doors embedded deep into rock. Ventilation shafts still burning from earlier strikes. Power lines exposed. The underground complex was alive just minutes before. Now it was about to disappear. Breaching teams moved fast, explosives placed with precision. No wasted movement, no hesitation. Thermite grenades were dropped into shafts, burning through internal systems. Fuel air charges were positioned along access tunnels. Demolition timers synchronized. At 5:23 p.m., the island shook. A deep concussion rolled through the ground, followed by a violent eruption of fire and debris. The mountain exhaled flame. Shock waves traveled across the island. Steel collapsed inward. Concrete fractured. The underground facility, North Korea's hidden nuclear assembly site, ceased to exist. Years of secrecy erased in seconds. At 5:26 p.m., secondary detonations confirmed total destruction. No structure left intact, no system operational, no evidence recoverable. The secret was gone. At 5:29 p.m., extraction began. Ospreys returned low and fast, rotors tilting as they hovered over cleared zones. Marines boarded in disciplined waves. SEAL teams covered final approaches. Attack helicopters remained overhead, weapons tracking movement that never came. At 5:34 p.m., the last aircraft lifted off Myang Island. From the air, smoke and fire marked the mountain's collapse. What had once been a classified facility was now an open wound on the island's surface. At exactly 6 p.m., as the sun reached the horizon, the execution time arrived. But there was no execution, no prisoners, no broadcast, no propaganda victory. Final reports were clear. 12 Marines infiltrated enemy territory. 332 Marines entered to retrieve them. 1 nuclear facility destroyed. 0 Americans captured. 0 Americans executed. North Korean forces suffered heavy losses. Command and control collapsed. The island was abandoned. What began as an execution order ended as a strategic failure. Myang Island taught a lesson that afternoon. Secrets don't stay hidden. Marines don't surrender. And when they are threatened, rescue is not optional. It is inevitable. The order to execute was given at 3:17 p.m. By sunset, everything else was gone. 3 hours, 17 minutes, total collapse.